Hey everyone, Corey here, coming in to do our weekly channel message. This is July the 18th, and this message is going to be follow us through the whole week. So first, let me start with this. Today, I decided that the runes would come out. And so with the runes, I did pull out a first little one, and I didn't want to shake the bag in the recording. So I did choose it before. And this is the one that when I poured them, this was actually the only one that actually turned over. Like there was a bunch there that were kind of looking like they were going to, but didn't. And I'm like, oh, this was so obvious to me. And so this stone and this meaning and where this stone comes from, where it's coming from in the message is Manaz, Mannaz, I think AZ. And so it speaks of, it represents that mankind. And it is that, so it kind of, leaks, it works around the self and our potential and how we can also be I guess, critical, judgmental, how we have the influence of our ego, I think is one of the big things that really truly is what's coming up for me. And so this is telling us, this stone is telling us that we need to be, a little less critical, a little less judgmental, a little less those against our peers, against others, or against ourselves, like that a little towards ourselves, like don't be so judgmental towards yourself. So that was the first one. And then the other one is a deck that I haven't had out in a long time. And I brought these out last year when I found myself having to do the Walk With Me journey. And so if you have not listened to my Walk With Me, it is in the playlist. And you can actually, they're not time stamped. So they are journeys that I was taking on a really hard journey I was having last year where I just kept walking, just kept walking, just kept walking. And I would walk and talk, and I would contemplate as I walked. And so that's also on YouTube under the playlist. If you go in and you can check that out as well. I think there's 12 or more in there that I recorded to go with it. But these are the Dark Night of Soul, and it is Laura Seva, I think. Laura Seva? I can't see. And yeah, that's all I could see. Sorry, butchering names again. But I had to pull these cards out as well. So that, and if you've been listening to all of my messages the past few weeks, I have been talking a lot about that reflection, turn it around. It's like, it's that deep dive into ourselves. So we can do, when we do self-healing, when we do spiritual work and in self, awakening and doing self-realization, self-actualization, that sense of learning more about ourselves is also learning the power of self-care, that self-preservation, knowing that is very important that we restore the integrity within ourselves or maintain the integrity while we dive deep. It doesn't mean we shred ourselves. It doesn't mean we are hard on ourselves. And so we do take those journeys inward, and they seem, and they're not always the easiest to take, but it is the journey to recognizing who we truly are beyond all of the stories, beyond everything that we've been told or anything that we tell ourselves. So if you look in the mirror and you tell yourself, I am fat, then you become the story of fat. So you become whatever that means. So you either become defensive of it, or you have a whole narrative, or where did you ever discover you were fat? Like, where did you learn the definition or the idea of what fat would be? And I know it's a word that got that trigger to it. And I know it's a word that triggers, and trust me, I've been on this journey, so I know. And so who is someone who has, been through many eating disorders and those things myself, and yo-yoing on the scale was something that I really learned in turning that mirror around. And for myself was, the truth of, you can have any procedure, you can do whatever you want, that you will always be yo-yoing, or you'll always be, punishing yourself for a reward, right? Like having to sacrifice something for a reward. And it's how we're programmed, that push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. But nothing is as consistent as actually doing the inner healing work. Find out the whys. Find out the reasons why these things have such an impact upon you. Where did I get that? What is that programming? What have I been plugging into? What truth do I tell myself? Am I my own bully? Am I my worst critic? And why am I? And what makes it, who will I be on the other side? So if you take everything still with you, all the baggage travels with you, and you unpack the baggage is in a skinnier body, you will still have all the baggage. Nothing has left. And dumping a person don't mean you drop the baggage, just so you know. That's the person. That's not everything of you. And you often see it in the reflection of until somebody is happy again. So it's like if you break up, it's like, I'm going to show them and they're going to be seeing what they're missing, and I'm going to lose all this weight. And then you do, right? You get that whole, and when I say you get that walk, and it's almost like you scoot the bottom half forward and the shoulders are kind of back, like so your bottom half is going ahead of your front half. And if you've ever, you will not forget this now, because the body moves like this. And that means you're still not in alignment, is that you are, your emotional self is pushing forward and pushing out, like, I'm going ahead, but you're leaving the higher self behind. So it's not an alignment into that, in a truth. There's not a real truth happening until you find something that makes you happy again. It's like, oh, well, it's like, I just met all these people, so now I just go and I eat out, and I just reward myself, and I just treat myself, and I drink more, and I do these. So all of these then become how our virtues become contaminated by our vices, by our behavior. So it's like all the things that we want to do for ourselves and we want to maintain and hold on to, we let those things slip away because we return to a narrative and a story. And it happens often. So I'm using the weight as a way to be able to, explain this, but this happens in everything: a job, a relationship, your relationship to money, your relationship to food, your relationship to your thoughts, to your emotions, your relationship to everything. What are you in relation to this, in relation to that? And so because what you're doing is you're comparing, and you have a preconceived image of what life will be when I get here, when this is the way I am, when I'll be happy if I lose the weight, I'll be this. No, you will not. There will be another reason for you not to be. You may be temporarily. So it's temporary satisfaction. And the whole world has been really, truly all about get rich quick, make your way there. You can have anything you want. You can max out your potential just by spending one weekend, in La La Land. But it's all temporary, because there will be something down the road that will trigger you, that makes you collapse. And we have witnessed, and we have bared witness to this in the past few years, when everyone's comfort was taken. That could never happen to us. What makes you think that could never happen? Right. And so those are the things that we are being told, that is, we have to explore deeper, but with a love, not with being so judgmental, but a awareness of how many cycles that are still on repeat, right? How many things are being constantly regurgitated, coming back. And this is the energy where there's a loop. So I feel like we're going into a retrograde energy, because what I'm seeing is we have a loop. And I'm like, what keeps coming back in that loop? It's like you fish, but you don't take out the garbage you pick up, and then everything goes down and just picks up more garbage and more stuff, and even the good stuff. And so it all gets mixed together. So I just see it's like a loop, and it's like this stop point. You have the stop button. You have the power to be the change that you need to see, but you got to be able to be willing to see it. And that's our big issue. Most times it's easy for us to be able to see what somebody else is doing wrong, what somebody else could do to live their better life. But it's not so easy to see self, to see our own shadow self, to see our own behaviors, our own actions, how powerful that ego is. And we are not here to dissolve the ego. That's huge right now. Coming into July, coming into here, it's not that you're here to dissolve the ego. It's just like emotions. You're here to learn to use the power of it in a healthy state, because we have the super ego. We have the doing the right things for the right reason. We have that sense of, we know it's wrong, right? You just, I can't do that. And then there's a little, devil on your shoulder. Oh, yes, we can. We can get away with it once. We can do this once. We can do this. We can do that. and then you bail on what you know to be right, right? And so that part of the ego that is screaming out to you, this is right, you know this, and you defy, you know, you defy that feeling of the gut feelings, like I'm not listening to you, because the rebel, the, you know, that know-it-all, or whatever it is, the lower energy of the ego takes over. So maxing out potential for the shadow means that you're living for something other than what you truly are, and you'll always have, you know, you'll always be chasing something. But when you discover you, when you go deep enough and you discover you, it's amazing what you'll find. Hence why more than existing, hence why everything that I do. So when you start to break, I say, you have to break up with you, and then you have to live as if you don't know you, and you get to know you. And so there's a shift in that perspective and that view, is that if we become all egoless, we'd be like marshmallows, like we just be mushroomed, we just be, oh, okay, it's okay, just let anything happen. It's like, oh, we just living in love and light, and we don't care about nothing else. No, that's not how any of this works. It's not how spirituality works. Is there has to be, you know, you have to sometimes have a brave heart. You sometimes have to put your shoulders up. You sometimes have to gain a backbone that you don't want to have all the time. You sometimes have to do the things that you know to be right. And we are really stepping into that energy where we are watching a small percentage with so-called power overpower us. And so that sense of that happens within yourself. What feels like it has a greater power is your suffering, is your situation you may be in, is somebody else's control over you, whatever it may be. Everybody's in a different situation, but we all know that we all have the same feelings and experiences in, you know, in feeling controlled, lost, smothered, whatever it may be. So you're being told to really pay attention to that. Like there is this sense of within ourselves, the same thing what happens out there in the big world happens within ourselves. So if your past is, and the emotions and the old memories that are tied to it, is that larger than life dictating control, OCD, whatever else comes with it, energy, and you're like, oh, that's just everyone, as long as everyone does what I want. Or if you're very quick to say, everybody is such narcissistic. Everyone you meet, or every ex or whatever it may be, is narcissistic, or they have narcissistic tendencies, or you have to really stop and look in that mirror. Because a lot of times us not getting what we want and really expecting people to meet those needs doesn't mean you're narcissistic, but it means we have tendencies, right? We all have these tendencies to go blind to the things that we don't want to see, to turn a blind eye to the things that are not really, that don't make me happy. I don't want to have to look at that. I don't want to have to face that in my life. No. I'm doing everything right, even though you're always arguing, always fighting, always in defiance. Like, no. So that's lower ego. That higher ego says, you know what? If I'm always in an argument, if I'm always angry, if I'm always afraid, if I'm always frustrated, if I'm always picking on myself in the world, I'm really, truly caught in some sort of spiral. I'm caught in some sort of loop. And that loop keeps flipping me between the I's and the we's and belonging. So we're separated from self. Your higher self, your lower self is separated. There's a divide that is happening. So it can be a wall, right? A broken bridge, a broken connection, which means it takes you back to mapping back to a previous experience to say, okay, when did this become such a thing for me? When did this have such a hold on me? And when did I start to, return to bad habits? A lot of things that I've noticed through the COVID and through all the experience of lockdowns and all those things is that a lot of people picked up a lot of behaviors, a lot of old habits they had given up, whether it was drinking or smoking, or eating again. Like people picked up, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to self-soothe, right? You're trying to self-soothe. You're trying to create a comfort in an uncomfortable time. But all you did was add to add to some of the problems that were happening, because now you're just like, now you've got another reason to be not kind to yourself, because now you're saying to yourself, I'm going to quit, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to get back on track, and blah, blah, blah. So there's just a lot of that energy that's just saying there's that swing, that flow, whatever you want to call it, or that loop of where the emotions are overriding. And those emotions can also really truly have us being judgmental and critical and criticizing people and not being that kind. And so, we are mankind, humankind. It means we should be kind, right? Like there's just this level of our ego self that operates in kindness, love, caring, and compassion. And so it is the flip of the emotions. And also the other aspect of the archetypes. So in Carl Jung's work and Freud's, there's all this talk about archetypes. And so in that spectrum, you often hear about the archetypes that are more linked to the trauma. But on the other end of that, there's a lot of very beautiful. There's, we have love, we have empowerment, we have just a lot of, we have the child, we have innocence, we have the divine. So we have a lot of beautiful energy over there. But if that lower ego comes over, then we got the tendencies to try to make ourselves greater than anyone else, to be so concerned about every certificate on the wall, or to be preaching to everyone else about how you're so much better, how you got it all figured out, how you know it, and how they need to do this. And if you only did this, and if you only did that, and that is still ego, right? And I know when I first was diagnosed with a health condition, that was, I had seen every specialist, every naturopath. There was nothing that I didn't really do besides become kind to myself. And I would listen to everyone. Oh, if you just did this, everyone had a pamphlet, a booklet, a suggestion, and thinking it was coming from the kindness of the heart. And I'm like, finally, I just had to say, stop, because you are adding to my frustration. If it's out there and it's affordable that I could do it, I have tried it. I did not give up on myself. And it's that assumption that we make that people are not doing the right things for themselves, but we don't know what people are sometimes doing, right? So it's not knowing where people are. And so that judgment and criticism, here we go again, right? And so that shift, that change, and what it's telling you is to really explore that, even how you speak to them. Oh, I should have just done that. If I had only done that, if I had been enough, if I had said those words, no, it is. And that situation just is. And now it's the past, right? So it's like, if we're going back with the higher ego. And that's usually something like, I probably was not the most upstanding citizen yesterday. And I am very sorry. And that was all on me. I don't have any excuses. I can't justify it to you. I just don't know. I just was. And that is the power that leaves it powerful, because everything else like waters it down, right? And so waters it down so it makes you comfortable, instead of having to have the courage from the superpower place, from the super ego, to do the right thing for the right reason. And so the card that we get is 22, and it is, I would not cry, or I wouldn't cry for you, right? And she's holding her teardrops of blood, right? And so what we have happening right here, what I'm getting with this card, is the essence that that's her being hard on herself. Like there's that essence that, it's like she could have great compassion and empathy for everyone else, for other people, for their mistakes, for their mishaps, for whatever, but she doesn't have that same compassion for herself. And so, and it can also be the reflection of somebody who you refuse to forgive. And I don't mean forgive like on your hands and knees. Please forgive me, please. I mean, in the essence of being able to make peace with yourself by saying, I cannot let myself lose me any farther in what I'm holding on to from that person. Because if it is costing me more than I can afford to lose, any more than I've already lost, then it is not worth investing in. And I have to be able to make peace. Now, how do I make peace? Where do I go to discover this? And that usually means reaching out to wherever you need to go. Psychologist, like finding somebody who's a counselor or a spiritual teacher, or a psychologist, or speaking to someone you can really trust, whatever it may be. Sometimes you just need to let it all out so that you're not letting it bounce in as if you are an emotional punching bag to yourself on the inside, or that you're allowing somebody else's words to keep being that punching bag back onto you. Like, so there's just something here this week that is just saying, this is in our face. Like, we can't reject this. We can't turn away from this. So it's in the planets. I don't know how, but I feel like I've got this sense there's a retrograde, and Chiron is playing a big role here. I see Chiron, and because what I'm seeing is like, keep seeing this gallopy, half horse, half man type of thing. And I have this, and I'm like half and half, right? Separated from self. His front, right? His upper body is walking ahead of his bottom body, right? It's like but this core right here is in alignment, and then the legs kind of buckle back, the back. So he's got an extended spine. He's got an extended, but it's like, so Chiron becomes that warrior energy. So we may be at war with ourselves. We may be struggling in a lot of areas and not knowing how or why. And these are some of the things that seem, oh yeah, maybe I am. But acknowledging it and the follow through are very different. So this week, you are being told to really follow through. Where have you not followed through in the past? Where do you keep only half-assing or half-hearted doing the things that you need to do, and to do it with such a knowing within your heart. And then we have envious gluttony. And that's, that sheep and wolf clothing type of thing, and wearing the wolf mask, and, being swallowed up by that sense of envy and gluttony. But is she really being swallowed, or is she coming out? I feel as if we are going to be waking up to realize how much of this has been like filtered through in the push to get you to judge, or and it's in that filtered view, wherever that filtered view. And when you look into somebody else's life, I want what they have, and they have the whole world. No, that feeds the narrative for you to be envious and jealous, because you see something, you see what you think they live like, and then you figure, I want everything that they have. But what you don't see behind that, this may not be you, but you may be this with your own self, right? I used to be this version of myself. I used to look like this. I used to be this way. And you're still in comparison, right? So you have this comparison so that then you can be extra hard on yourself, and that you can be, you can be that punisher, that person that really truly, that side of yourself that is not very kind to self. And that's that lower ego that we're trying to ascend beyond. We're expanding that out, and to be kinder, to be softer, to be gentler. And that sense of knowing that, okay, I see something about them that I really like, or that person, they inspire me, but I don't know the rest of their life. So I can't say I want their life, because if I want their life, then I'm going to be wanting everything that they got. I don't know what they're struggling with. I don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Obviously, this is not all of them. This is an aspect of them. It's a piece of them. But what more is happening? If you even so much as even just look around someone's home, or someone's space, you'll see other things. Like, you see me here being a channel and mystic. You see me do psychic medium work, but I also paint. I also am an author. I'm also passed down generational healer. There's so many other things, but I also have a normal life. I'm also living in a house that's half the size as the house I was living in 6 months ago, with many reasons why. Like, there's things that is happening behind the scenes. So when you create the image of thinking that somebody else has the perfect life, it is actually so that you can be, the self-saboteur of your own existence. And when you're only looking to your own reflection, you go deep enough and you discover these things, you do the hard stuff, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's the job, right? It takes work. It takes effort. And then knowing that in your own reflection, you see that sense of self, and then you start to feel the upside of the emotions that we're speaking about, that we want to start expanding upon with a love and caring about yourself, then you're going to probably want to do things a little differently than you've done them in the past. So don't compare yourself to the past. Be the inspiration to that future self. And so this is our message. This is as big as it gets. I will follow through with one of my goddess cards, and let's just see what this gives us. So we have the creator of worlds, the enchanted alchemist, and we have Paradox, the illusionist, and she was in reverse. So I'm gonna leave her in reverse. So there's some attitude, right? She's hanging on, is she swinging, having fun, or is she hanging on to the edge of a story? Like, is she just holding on to an identity and it's all crumbling and falling and she has to surrender and she won't let go? Or is she truly like just taking a leap of faith? What is going on? We don't know unless we ask, right? So if you want to know something about somebody else, instead of assuming or creating a story in your head, ask. And they will give you the truest versions of what they got until they know a different story. But that having assuming expectations, all of those things really truly leads us down a rabbit hole. And we're being told to be aware of how these illusions become reality within our lives. And so living through someone else's story. And then we have the creator of worlds, which is the enchanted alchemist. Ultimately, the alchemist, we never look into the eyes of anyone else to find ourselves. We never even turn our heads to look at what somebody else is doing, because there's so much that is happening within ourselves, and we're listening to so much, and we're trying to take that journey to discover. It's just this, that's awakening. You just got this nagging weight, like this feeling of, I know there's something more. How many people have said that? I know there's something more. There's something more for me. I can feel it. I know it. Well, that sense and that feeling, I was like, oh, I'm so tired of this job. I can't do this no more. It's not for me. Well, it's because you're not the person who started out, right? And we are ever evolving and changing. And so if we want to master our lives, we got to only look into our lives and look into no one else's. No one writes the books or the chapters of your life but you. You can be inspired by somebody else. And that doesn't mean you're all going to be authors. What that means is that we all are like this book. Are you a closed book? Are you an open book? Are you willing to open up that book and kind of rip out some of those pages, or look at them as, this was great reading material. This was great tools. This is great wisdom that can now guide me, but I'm ready to write on these blank pages. And one of the most powerful things that I've ever discovered is, once I hit this stage of, being, in living in that sense of light, I feel blank. I always feel like that sense of, I'm a blank page or a blank canvas and there's nothing there. And I'm like, you so quickly, you want to run out and fill it up. You want to put something there. You want to add something on there. And sometimes we're just meant to be doing nothing. Sometimes we're just meant to be in the pause, or to know that the blank canvas has so much that is unseen. And in time, it reveals itself. It's like, I'm painting a picture of something, I don't know what that is yet, something over there that every day, first I just got to paint one shade of yellow, and then another shade of yellow, and then a shade of white. And then I hear, stop, don't paint anymore. Don't go anymore. Just this one side, not that side, just this side. And eventually the blank canvas is unfolding something for me to see, but I don't know the outcome. I don't even know what it is. I don't even know that. All I know is that each and every time I sit with spirit and I channel in, something new comes into creation. And each and every time when I'm done that little piece, it's amazing how I feel different. And I feel like, and then I have like pages to write in my books. So then I have pages and pages that I can then write, because I went silent and I sat and I stayed in that center self. And that's what you're being told this week. I know it's a really big message. Sorry, not sorry. I don't get to do the stop and pause on them. They come as they are designed. I never know what's coming, and that they're always a message of absolute love and light in the way that they can be. And so I hope that helps you in some way this week. Much love. Have a beautiful week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.